And then our lightning talks. So we're going to have them in order. Ronán Kennedy, who's going to be online doing his hybrid, yes, from University of Galway. Brian Gillespie, formerly at TU Dublin. David Kane, Deputy Librarian at SETU Library, and then Peter Riley, Learning and Engagement Librarian at UL. Everyone has lovely, nice, long titles. There we go. That took a little bit of time. Enjoy the afternoon, everyone, and have a happy Christmas from everyone at LIR. And yes, we're nearly finished, so hang in there.
And hi, everybody. Good to see you all virtually. Anyway, at least it's great to have the opportunity to speak with you all today. So I'm going to lead off the retrospective look, where we just wheel out the ex-chairs so we can do a little bit of sentimental navel gazing and feel good about ourselves about the work that LIR has done in the past. But we're in the home stretch, and I promise I won't keep you waiting. I'm very heavily caffeinated right now, so we'll probably charge through this. So what I'm going to do is just very quickly just kind of do a whistle-stop tour of some of the work that the committee had done in previous years, and it was a really kind of enjoyable opportunity for me to go back, I think, and just do a little bit of looking in terms of what the committee had done, what kind of areas we'd focused on in previous seminars, and it's kind of like a little bit of a sort of a LIR version of reeling in the years. And one of the things I found interesting was a lot of the work that we covered in previous years is in a lot of ways, in different forms, still just as important as it is today. So what I'm going to do is just basically go back through the previous seminars that I was involved with back in 2010 and 2011 and just have a quick look at them. So the first one in 2010 was Access All Areas, and it was centered around mobile tech and free resources in libraries. So you can imagine back in 2010, we had like all sorts of nasty words like austerity and things like that. And I think libraries and the education sector in general was really struggling to try and kind of provide a good level of service for our community, and at the same time trying to kind of find the scope to be able to innovate at the same time. It was a particularly challenging time. So I'll just show you a quick screen grab of the seminar schedule for 2010, and you can see the old LIR logo at the top there, which I'm fairly sure looking at it now looked like it was probably something from like Windows 95 royalty-free clip art or something like that. But Brian might be able to maybe enlighten us on that one. So you can see anyway, there were two main strands of the conference in 2010. So the first one was we're kind of coming to terms with mobile technology and being able to provide services through mobile tech, through mobile phones, etc. And you can see there's some presentations there from some people who are there in the audience today, from David Kane, from Peter Riley, and it was things like, you know, integrating SMSs into the OPAC and 23 things and stuff like that. But in particular, there was a whole strand centered around free resources and how we'd be able to try and kind of filter through and provide access to resources of what we might call good integrity that are free to all of our different sort of stakeholders and our different community cohorts. And it was really, really interesting to see how people were working to try and kind of provide access to something that was going to be of good scholarly value, I suppose. And you can see as well, there was a talk there from Fiona McGoldrick and Rita on IRL at the time. And this was particularly interesting because already we were kind of coming to grips, or we're starting to grapple with, certainly with a couple of things that are sort of still on the table for today. And in my chair's report for that year, so basically what we had to do every year is we produce a chair's report to all of the institutions who subscribed, which is basically a begging letter, going out to them cap in hand and going, look, this is all the good work that we're doing, so can we have a little bit more money, please, so we can keep kind of doing this work. And my chair's report, I think, centered around three different things that we'd covered in the conference: managing the impact of trying to provide services with reduced resources, encouraging libraries to evaluate what we call these free resources, and as well as this, examining the changing relationships with publishers. And in a lot of different ways, those philosophies are still actually key and really, really strategically important for us today. So the terminology might have changed, but I think the philosophy still holds true. And just like with OR numbers from COVID and social distancing, we're having a lot of new terms that are sort of entering today's business lexicon, but they still kind of are very, very strongly tied to the past. We've got our open access, obviously, open scholarship, OERs, and now all of a sudden now we're dealing with APCs and we're dealing with the transformative deals and the transitional deals. And it was really interesting, actually. I kind of noted the talk from IRL in 2010, and IRL, as you know now from the earlier talk today, still doing a huge amount of work with these kind of grappling with the transformative deals and what they actually might mean for us in terms of the library landscape and information provision for the future. So in other words, we're still working hard to evaluate and kind of tease out that little relationship with publishers. And that will continue to be important for us, because at the end of the day, while we're reestablishing a relationship with the publishers, they won't make a change unless it's going to be monetized by them. And I think it takes a lot of sort of diligence and vigilance and pressure by us to make sure that we're kind of steering them in the right direction towards kind of greater open access for everybody. As we know, this is strategically really, really important for us as we kind of march towards open in the coming decade or so. So moving on to 2011, we decided to take on a new theme, and that was ebooks caressing the divine details. And just to say as well, in the intervening year, LIR ran a huge amount of workshops. And a lot of those workshops were actually so popular they ended up having to be kind of rerun because they were oversubscribed. And I think that speaks to the really strong kind of training and development appetite that's across the Irish library community, and also the really strong role that LIR has played in being able to sort of upskill and inform the library community. And that work is still ongoing today, and it's great to see. And I've certainly benefited from a huge amount of those workshops. But anyway, we moved into 2011 and we started to take a look at ebooks. And this is the seminar timetable for 2011. And we've got our swanky new logo entering the fray during that year. And this was a really, really interesting conference. And you can see from the middle strand in particular, we really kind of dug into a lot of the details about how we can provide ebook access in a sort of a seamless manner for our user community. We also did a little bit of dabbling and experimenting and sort of renting out ebook readers and kind of trying to take care of the sort of the user side of the house as well. But just for the purposes of our quick few minutes today, it was really, really good to see how people were grappling with trying to negotiate different pricing models, how to integrate the metadata into the library catalog, how to push it out there, would there be authentication issues, how to kind of keep on top of all of those kind of strands behind the scenes. And there was a number of pilot projects being run in a couple of different institutions, and in Galway as well, we were doing a lot of work in that area. And it was a really, really interesting conference. And one of the things I noted was when I was looking back over my notes for today, I took a look at my kind of the address at the start, the seminar opening address, and it was really interesting to see what was going on. So back at the time, HarperCollins was drawing in a lot of heat because they were making use of the exploding titles concept. So in other words, an institution would pay for 10 different uses of a particular book, and once that book had its 10 uses, it would explode and disappear. And Phil Bradley put it really well. He said it's going to make libraries think twice about purchasing ebooks if publishers think they can just kind of change the rules and get away with it. And certainly back in 2011, I think if this is a film, this is the foreboding music would start to play a little bit when we realized we're kind of still dealing with this a lot, and it's become more and more important now. My opening address went on to kind of cover a couple of other things, but really kind of highlighting the themes of dealing with the issues like simultaneous usages, ebook lifespan, a couple of other things in terms of deals and what we can do. And it really kind of highlighted the conflict that we have in terms of trying to provide quick access to the user community, but also trying to kind of demonstrate value for money. And this is really, really interesting because if you look at that now in the world's most depressing crystal ball back in 2011, if you were to look forward to today, you'd see that this issue is still here and it is just as prevalent for us. And that's why we have the ebook SOS movement. And it's dealing with the 4 key themes which were still referred to back in 2011 of ebook costs, the licensing issues, the transparency in terms of how they're being available, and also the sustainability in terms of trying to ensure access into the future as well. And that's why the LII put out the call for action that you would have seen very, very recently. And that call for action was endorsed by the other 3 organizations that you can see on the screen there beside you. And interestingly enough, the call for action covered a number of key points, and they're very, very familiar to us when we look back at what we were doing in 2011. We're still looking for transparency and sustainability in pricing, trying to get more of these books available electronically, especially textbooks. We're trying to get more flexibility so we can kind of pick and choose, because we'll have always seen where some textbooks are only available in a bundle of 20 titles and the other 19 are just junk titles, basically. Still looking at exploding licenses, unfortunately, and still looking at the issue of simultaneous users, as well as kind of branching out in a couple of our areas where when we do our sort of horizon scanning into the future, we can see that things like controlled digital lending are going to be key issues for us into the future. So I thought it was very, very interesting because when we took a look at 2010 and 2011, a lot of the issues that were sort of relevant for us back then are still just as strategically important for us right now. So what does that tell us? I think it tells us we have to kind of continue to do what we do. We need to continue to kind of experiment, stay vigilant, keep working on those relationships with publishers, keep doing our horizon scanning, because again, a lot of these issues could carry on into the future. And it's really, really a good idea, I think, no more than anything else, to front load that work at the start as much as you can. So just to wrap up, I went off to the internet, and I went off to Google, and I said, right, give me some decent quotes about history. And we came back with all the usual ones about learning from the past and don't repeat the mistakes of the past, and the past is your lesson, and all that kind of stuff, all the usual kind of quotes that you'd expect to see. And I decided they were fairly boring. So just in terms of the theme of being Back to the Future, I'm going to leave you with a quote from Doc Brown. And that is, the future is whatever you make it, so make it a good one. And I think that's a pretty important one anyway for ourselves, from a personal point of view and a professional point of view. So that's all I have to say. Just thanks very much, and I've really enjoyed the day today. So thank you again.